Well, everybody's clock says 8 o'clock, so we're going to get started. Dominic, ask a blessing for us, please, sir.
Thank you. Let's pray. Heavenly Father God, we love you. Thank you for this day, God. Thank you for the opportunity we have to serve on behalf of our districts in this great state. God, just give us the wisdom and discernment to make good decisions that are not just good for the people of this state, but that will glorify you in all that we do. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
And help everybody be safe while they got this place in the rearview mirror today.
Amen.
Thank y'all for coming on such a short notice. We got a couple of three things. Excuse me, I don't know what's wrong with me. That we need to get done. One thing I want to remind you of is the Peanut Commission, Commodity Commission thing is Sunday, where they give us their report, and also PB&J Day is Monday. And Matthew, if you ain't never had none of these new fried peanut butter sandwiches, you're gonna eat more than you ought to. But anyway, if you see people, tell them that, so they'll know. Stephen, you ready?
Yes,
House Bill 332.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have before us a substitute to House Bill 332, LC 44118-0S. We revised the language just to allow the Commissioner of Agriculture to designate someone to attend the Commodity Commission meetings on his behalf as an ex officio member of the vote on those commissions, Mr. Chairman.
Did everybody hear that? I forgot to mash his mic button. All right, does anybody have any questions? This is about the 18th version of this thing to get it right, and I hope this does. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Representative Meeks. Kind of going along with the question that maybe somebody's already asked about how short this is, and it's just kind of hard to understand how we've had so much difficulty with a short bill like this. I can only imagine what kind of mess you'll make of a 8 or 10 page bill. And so maybe you could explain kind of the controversy or the complications surrounding this really short piece of legislation.
Well, I appreciate the question there, and it's been noted to me by others of how short this is and how difficult a longer bill may be. Other than that, though, Representative LaRicchia, with the Farm Bureau making an appointment to a board, that was a question that was brought to my attention, so we decided to eliminate that section of it and continue to allow the president of Georgia Farm Bureau to serve on those boards as the ex officio.
Thank you, sir.
10 more questions. Motion would be good if somebody's got one. Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. This is a substitute, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I don't see Sam. We'll wait on him. We're going to go on and do House Bill 545, if that's okay. I'm going to let my vice chairman run the show because I got to explain the bill.
Yes, sir. You go right ahead, Mr. Chairman.
545 is a work that's been in the process for a couple of weeks. I appreciate Lita Burns and Chairman England and Watson and Perkle and Dickey for helping me with this. What it basically does is protects Georgia's #1 industry and the rural communities that they located in. There's been a trend seen in other states that devastate agriculture businesses. If they find legal loopholes that they can go through to sue the businesses or the farms. Georgia is a right to farm state, but we are also full of loopholes. And this is aimed at closing the gaps in the current law to protect existing farm operations from undue suits by encroaching urban people or populations out where the farms are. It clarifies that a property's existing status is maintained. It deletes a whole lot of unneeded language and updates the code to reflect more modern practices and improvements in management decisions. It expressly maintains that any negligence or noncompliance or doing any illegal activity under federal or state laws does not fall under the protection of this bill. It doesn't change any local zonings or any local setbacks or any other local property control authorities. So there's one thing we need to change. If you'll look down on line, look down on line 53. That was deleted and wasn't supposed to be. But to make it read right with the rest of the paragraph, I'd like to move that we add the words down at the end of line after operation. I'm just moving that down and redoing it just to make it clear that if you're doing something wrong, you still get sued. If I can get y'all to agree to put the provisions of this subsection shall not apply when a nuisance results from neglect, improper, or illegal operations. And I guess I need to put that in the form of a motion to put that in there, or either just y'all make a motion if you want to pass this out as amended. Well, we need to add that in there, yeah.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Yeah. And it's pretty much a language that's up there. I'm just trying to make it fit where it got left out. It says the provisions of this subsection shall not apply when a nuisance results from negligent, improper, or illegal operation.
What we just voted to amend was to
Unstrike that, yeah, but I had to move it down to make the words read right. So it comes in after operation, or another line, wherever Paul says he thinks you have to put it.
Mr. Chairman, after operation on line 58, I think that's what you're getting
Yeah.
at. Yes, understand.
Yeah. All right, anybody have any, well, I ain't in charge, I'm sorry.
You're exactly right. You're taking my job. Is anyone else speaking to this bill? Any questions about Chairman? This is the proper time, sir. We have, okay? Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, say no.
Thank y'all
Back to
very
you,
much.
Mr. Chairman.
Lauren is saying, oh, there he is right there. I was looking for him a while ago, I'm going blind. Wherever you want to do, if you want to do it right there, it'd be fine. Which one are you? Number 7. All right. All right, House Bill 512 should be in your folder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. And before I begin, I also want to say I've got Dan Richardson is here as well with the Propane Association. And if he can have an opportunity to speak when we get done, I would appreciate it. So I'll go ahead and start into the bill just to give you a little brief background. We have up to 12 to 13 commodity commissions across our state that represent those commodities. And so we're just wanting to add propane to the list to do the same function that many of the other commodity commissions do. So just to kind of run through it real quick, we'll start the first section here. We're just defining things, definitions of dealer, distributor, marketing order. Next section, we're just basically creating the Agricultural Commodity Commission for propane. The next section, we're talking about the members and how they're appointed. 3 by this committee, 2 by the Senate, 1 at large. The next section goes into compensation, legal representation, basically what they can and can't do as a commission, all similar to current language in law for all the other commodity groups. Next section just talks about what it is. Keep going down, back to page 4. How the funds are held, where they're held, handling of funds, liability, and then as we continue on down that page, we're getting into public hearings when determining or enforcing marketing orders and how that process should go. The next page, basically getting into what we're using the funds for. No more than 10% of it can be used for admin. Bottom of the page, it starts getting into the referendum and how to call a referendum, what the funds will go for, how they're collected. On line 167, that is where they may not exceed 4/10 of 1 cent per each gallon. That would be the maximum that they could ever collect. And then it talks about who's eligible and who's not. Have an opt-out, so this is voluntary. So they will be allowed to opt out if they do not wish to participate. Goes on to talk about continuance, every 5 years renewal, personal debt, penalties, what happens if they don't. And then we finish out with procedures for hearings if there are ever any problems. So that's kind of what's in the bill, and then the short of it is currently right now propane dealers pay into a federal fund that they use for education, marketing, rebates for consumers. It's collected at the federal level, and that's where the basis for this idea came from. Was they're already doing it at the federal level. They would like to do it at the state level, and they wanted it to be fair, where the large guys pay more, the small guys pay less, but everybody still paying their part. And that's what they would do with the funds, is use it for education, safety, promotion, rebates, training, in coordination with technical schools, and helping subsidize some of that for them. So they basically want to grow their industry and help educate people, but that's basically how it would work. It'd be collected. Wholesalers would collect it from the dealers, and then it would be remitted to the commission. And so I know Dan is here, and he could probably add to more of the specific details, but as we talk through it, if he was to order 9,500 gallons of propane to his location, he'd be looking at about a $24 increase or cost. Of course, propane changes daily, so it's similar to gasoline, I guess, in a sense that it's always changing up and down as the market controls that. So that being said, I don't know if Dan wants to add any more comments to the bill, or if anybody's got any questions, Mr. Chairman.
He's welcome to if you might try to keep from getting questions.
Yeah.
You sit right up. Appreciate you coming.
Oh, thank you for letting me. It was nice and early in Tifton, Georgia at 4:30 this morning. But that's it. But the nice thing is you get older, 4:30 just becomes normal.
Well, how was Henry County?
Henry County was good as I came through as well. Yeah. The traffic was all right, so that was good. I guess the biggest thing I'd like to say is this is just a way for us, as propane marketers, propane dealers, for one thing, to kind of level the playing field. And let me say this just very quickly. Propane is a rural item, and it is rural America and rural Georgia. The majority of the customers that we have are in rural areas. The great thing about propane is that it gives people in inaccessible areas or areas where it's hard to get into, it gives them a choice, and it gives them the ability to have gas as an energy choice. So, I want to bring that up. And the thing I mentioned a while ago also, it gives the majority of our marketers, there's about 120 companies in Georgia that are propane. Most of them are smaller. Most of them are mom and pop. But yet, who we compete against the Georgia Powers, we compete against the Atlanta Gas and Light, we compete against those larger entities who provide rebates to customers and other forms like that. So this gives, say, someone like me who operates in 28 counties in South Georgia, it gives me a chance to offer rebates to our consumers and be on a level playing field with the bigger guys in the other energies like the Georgia Powers, the Atlanta Gas and Light, the municipalities that you go against that are sponsored by GEMA and those items. So it just, again, it helps the small companies. It helps a lot of our companies too. Now, I'm a little different. Like I said, I cover 28 counties. We have 3 offices. We have about 31 employees. A lot of our companies have 5 or 6 employees. So it helps that smaller guy to be on that level, a lot more level playing field with it. So any questions that you might have?
There is a couple of questions, and if you don't mind,
Sure.
you and Sam kind of tag team,
All right.
if that's okay. Scott, are you number 4? I'm 3. 3, okay. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You mentioned rebates. Is there something in the law today that prevents you from offering rebates to consumers?
No, there's not.
Okay, so help me understand, what prevents you as an industry from meeting the objectives of this bill today?
In other words, why do we need legislation?
Why do you
make
need
this
a
happen?
bill
Yeah.
to do some of these things? What I'm seeing, the marketing piece, the things
Right.
I think that are most value add for you, for your industry. Why do we need to pass a law to do that? Why can't you just do it?
For one thing, the way that we would do it in adding to say an invoice that I get on a load of propane that I get into one of my bulk facilities, really what it does is for the wholesaler. If the wholesaler adds in that amount onto that invoice, by having the legislation, it gives them the ability to enforce and collect. That if it's just something simply that we as an association are asking for, then there's no teeth in it. I mean,
I thought, Representative Watson, Chairman, I thought I heard you mention that there was a voluntary aspect to this.
Yes, it's voluntary if the dealers so choose to participate.
So if a dealer chooses not to participate under this, what happens?
all right, if they choose not to, there's a time period, there's a window there that they can choose to opt out and send in and say, hey, we choose to opt out of it, and then it will be handled. But what could happen, though, is let's say you have a dealer that say is having cash flow problems, and say they've contributed some, and then they just decide for a time period, well, I'm not going to do it for a time period. until my cash flow's better.
Mhm.
And then I'll come back into it.
Well, and I think too, it's by putting it in law, it happens automatically. And, you know, I don't know about y'all, but sometimes I'll join something, an association, or I might do it this year, might not do it next year, or I might just forget. I think it just creates a law that is done no matter what happens, no matter, for, you know, in perpetuity, basically. So,
When you mentioned opt out, it said to be handled. Could you expound upon that? What do you mean by be handled?
All right, in other words, there's just some paperwork they have to fill out, and so that if there is any money that's already been turned in at that point, they make sure they get it back. And also that you have something in writing so that you can give to the wholesaler, so the wholesaler has a list to know who to handle and not handle.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Scott, too, I think that all the other commissions are set up like this to be able to legally collect and distribute and do promotions and you know, activities like that with, you know,
I would.
their
I would,
commodities.
yeah, I understand that that's the way we have done it, but I don't think there's anything that prevents. You know, you have a First Amendment right to associate with whoever you choose to associate with, and so I don't think you have to do it that way. Is my concern, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Okay, number 4. Robert, is that
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And to speak to Representative Turner's question a little bit, I'm a member, to the rest of the members of the committee here, I'm a member of a commodity commission, commodity commission for peaches. And ours is set up very, very similar to this. We vote every 3 years on ours. And this one says, and I think ours is the same way, 50% have to vote. If you don't get 50% vote, it falls out, and then 50% or more have to vote it in. So we talk a lot about the amount we want to raise and what we're going to do with it. And so if the members of the commission are not all together in agreement for the amount and how it's going to be spent, the thing will pass. So it's very member-driven, very much so. But Scott, Representative Turner, it really gives for us, and I think some other commodity, gives you numbers to promote, advertise statewide or even national-wide, whatever target you wanting to do with, instead of this little mom and pop putting an ad in local paper or something, you can do bigger markets and bigger programs. We go to national retailers with our program and such as a Kroger or Walmart and promote our peaches that I couldn't do by myself. So it gives them the strength and larger amount of money, large amount of support from the dealers or distributor or whatever to really promote the product. And so it's been a great tool for ag commodities and for other things nationwide that are really broken down into smaller business units that just can't do what the bigger folks do, like a Georgia Power or like Atlanta Gas. It's sort of, and it's very self-driven and self run. So it's worked well in all these other commodities. Sometimes they're not all together; they fail, they vote them out, and they start over again. So it's historically it's worked well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm not sure who this question should be directed to, so I'm just going to put it out there and let whoever answer it. And I'm going to show a little bit of my ignorance, but I'm familiar vaguely with commodity commissions, and I'm trying to understand. I understand the intent, but behind this one in particular. And Representative Dickey's comments have helped clarify a little bit of my question. But I'm trying to understand what a marketing order is, practically speaking. I've read the bill. I know what the words say in this bill, but I'm trying trying to understand what that means in practical terms.
Well, a marketing order can be, think of a SPLOST. When you do a SPLOST, you're giving that money specifically to an item. What we as an industry would do and vote on is that these funds would be used in this particular manner, and that way it would take those funds then, and they would have to be used in those issues. You couldn't just use them for, I guess, willy-nilly, other things, but it would give direction, and it would also, as the representative was saying a while ago, it would have to come with the vote and with the approval of the industry.
So and where are the funds? The funds come from the dealers.
That's right.
Correct.
That's
In the form of fees or dues or.
So in other words, what would happen? Okay, I have a 30,000
line
gallon tank
167, Matthew.
that I use for storage. Okay, I call up and I have someone deliver a transport load, which is about 9,500 gallons, into that tank, and I receive an invoice from a wholesaler. So on that invoice is going to be attached the fee for that, and then you pay that back to the wholesaler.
Bo, do you want to try to help him understand marketing order? Sure, I'll try to, Mr. Chairman. Is that all right with you, Matthew?
Fine by me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
With Georgia Department of Ag?
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bo Warren with Georgia Department of Ag. And marketing order is a term that we use both at the federal level and state level when we talk about these agricultural commodity commissions. We use the term marketing order, but that's essentially the regulatory and legislative framework that creates the program, which leads to a voter referendum and then the self-assessment, but we use the term as a marketing order. But it's just the regulatory framework that allows these programs to exist in law. Does that help answer the question?
I just want you to be clear. Who's number 5? All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Watson, I've kind of followed you through this process, and I am most of the times, and in this occasion, supportive of industries cooperating and organizing and doing these. And I just had a couple of questions that you and I had already talked about a little bit, and I've talked to some of the ones that are initiating this measure. My concern was that the way that those members are appointed to that commission, and trying to make sure that even what we might call the small guys in that industry are represented. And I don't think that necessarily has to be specifically noted in this legislation, but kind of to voice that as that you want your small guys. I'm in the termite and pest control industry, and on the structural termite and pest control board, I'll just be quite honest, we have felt like that the small mom and pop or smaller independent termite and pest control companies were not represented. And we're talking through that and want to have an opportunity to serve, but I'm sure in this industry that I wouldn't be wrong in saying that the small guys want to be represented. And the other question was, I think in here it caps the percentage or the fee that you pay. And what would the initial, what would it be? Is it going to be, it caps it at point
It's
4?
Yeah, 0.4, 1/4, may not exceed 4/10 of 1 cent.
And so what would that start off at? What is it at? Or what are they telling you that it's going to start off at?
It'd be a quarter of a penny.
Okay. And if they ever were to try to move towards the cap, that's something that board would decide, or that industry would vote to decide.
That's right.
On to themselves.
That's right.
You couldn't just arbitrarily come in and raise that to the max or whatever.
Right, right. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it.
And then too, Representative, that, you know, as far as membership goes, this committee has say-so in that in the beginning and the Senate, so.
Sam, that's what I was gonna say. If you look on line 3942, I think you will have the small guys covered out of this committee anyway. And I'm glad to see 3 out of the House and 2 out that other side over there.
Yeah. That was by purpose, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. You did good with that. Does anybody have any more questions? Sam, you got anything you want to finish up with?
No, I just would ask for everybody's support. You know, propane is a integral part of every rural community and farm, and it's something that we use every day. I think this is a good opportunity for them to grow and educate and do more.
And it is a rural Georgia thing more than it is a urban type or even inside smaller cities. Especially when they're picking peanuts, right?
That's right.
All right, and no more questions. We'll take a motion one way or the other. Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no? All right, one no and everybody else, yes. All right, thank y'all for coming early in the morning, and be careful going away from this place up here.